Welcome to the Cheating Wife Stories channel. Daniel Conway stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows of the Grand Meridian Hotel's ballroom, watching the city lights flicker below as he nursed his second scotch. The annual Transglobal Logistics Gala bustled behind him, a sea of designer dresses and tailored suits that probably cost more than what his employees earned in a month. He ran his logistics division with precision and care, ensuring his 200 employees across 3 states had good benefits and fair wages, even if it meant smaller bonuses for himself. "Daniel, darling, you're not networking." Natalie's voice carried that familiar edge of disapproval. She appeared at his side in a red Valentino dress that had sparked their first real argument in months. Spending $1,000 for a single evening's wear had seemed excessive, but she'd insisted it was an investment in their future. "I've been talking with the Milwaukee team about implementing the new automated tracking system," Daniel replied, turning to face his wife. He noted how her carefully styled blonde hair caught the chandelier light. After 16 years of marriage, she was still stunning, but lately, her beauty felt like a carefully constructed facade. "Nobody wants to hear about work systems at a party," Natalie sighed, her green eyes already scanning the room. They stopped, brightening, and Daniel knew, without needing to turn, what, or rather who, had caught her attention. Richard Whittaker commanded the center of the room like a conductor before his orchestra. The new CEO's Harvard MBA and family connections had fast-tracked him to the top position 6 months ago, and he hadn't stopped reminding everyone since. "Richard was just telling us about his new yacht," Natalie gushed, already moving toward the crowd. 45 feet, custom-built in Monaco. "Come join us, darling. You might learn something." Daniel watched his wife slide effortlessly into the circle around Richard, who immediately made space for her at his side. At 45, Whittaker embodied what magazines called silver fox charm. Salt and pepper hair, a tennis club tan, and the kind of confidence that came from never having faced real consequences. "Your wife's quite something, Conway." Marcus Wheeler appeared beside him, clapping his shoulder with forced joviality. Daniel's friend since college, Marcus had changed since taking over East Coast operations, becoming more politician than logistics expert. "She's really embraced the executive social circle," Marcus added. "She has," Daniel replied neutrally, watching Richard lean close to whisper something in Natalie's ear that made her laugh too loudly. "How's Sarah?" Busy with the kids' college applications, Marcus shifted uncomfortably. "Listen, Dan, maybe you should join them. Richard's been asking about your division's performance." Daniel took another sip of scotch. "My quarterly reports speak for themselves. We're up 12% in efficiency and 8% in profit margins." "Numbers aren't everything in this business anymore," Marcus said carefully. "Richard has a vision for modernizing through outsourcing and cutting corners," Daniel interjected. "I've read his proposals. They'll gut our quality control and overwork our people." A conversation around Richard suddenly erupted in laughter. Daniel caught fragments about someone's new summer house in the Hamptons. Then Natalie's voice rose above the others. "Oh, Richard, you simply must show us pictures of the yacht's master suite." Later that night, after a silent drive home in separate cars, Natalie had insisted on staying just a bit longer to discuss some charity event with Richard's circle. Daniel sat in his home office reviewing quarterly projections. The shared family iPad chirped with a message notification. He usually ignored Natalie's devices, but something, intuition or fate, made him glance at the screen. The message preview showed Richard's name and the words, "Missing you already, beautiful. Can't wait for." Daniel's hand was steady as he picked up the iPad. Natalie had forgotten to log out of her messages again, a careless mistake that seemed less like forgetfulness now. He scrolled through months of conversations, each message driving another nail into 16 years of marriage. "The beach house is free this weekend. Marcus won't be using it. That dress today. You're torturing me in meetings. Daniel's so boring at these events. You deserve someone who can match your sophistication." The front door opened and closed. High heels clicked on hardwood. Daniel didn't turn when Natalie appeared in the office doorway. "You're still up." Her voice held artificial lightness. "It's past midnight." "How long?" Daniel kept his voice level, turning the iPad screen toward her. Natalie stiffened for just a moment. Then her shoulders relaxed. A small, cruel smile played at the corners of her mouth. "Does it matter?" "Months, since Richard took over, with Marcus's help, using his beach house." Daniel stood slowly. "Were you ever going to tell me?" Eventually, Natalie stepped into the office, her expensive perfume filling the space. Once everything was arranged. "Richard's lawyer is excellent. And with his connections." She shrugged elegantly. "You must have known this was coming. You're just a small-time manager, Daniel. Regional operations, please. Richard is everything you're not. Ambitious, sophisticated, connected. He knows what real success looks like." "Real success," Daniel repeated softly. "Like buying your way to the top with daddy's money and an overpriced MBA. Don't be bitter, darling. It's unattractive." Now Natalie examined her manicure. "I've already spoken with the girls. They understand completely." The casual mention of their daughters hit harder than anything else. "You involved our children in this. They're 16, not babies. Emily and Lucy know what's best for them." Natalie's smile widened. "Richard's already looking into summer programs in Switzerland for them. The kind of opportunities you could never provide." Daniel sat back down at his desk, his voice deadly calm. "Get out of my office. We'll discuss this with lawyers present." Natalie replied smoothly. "Gladly." She turned to leave, then paused. "Oh, and Daniel, Richard's lawyer will be in touch about the house. We'll need you to move out by the end of the month. The girls shouldn't have to deal with awkwardness." The betrayal spread through Daniel's life like poison, revealing rot in relationships he had thought solid. Marcus Wheeler, his friend of 20 years, avoided his calls for a week before finally agreeing to meet at their usual bar. "I should have told you," Marcus admitted, not meeting Daniel's eyes. "But Richard, he's the future of the company, Dan. Sarah and I have the kids' college to think about, and his plans for restructuring. Save it." Daniel's voice could have frozen hell. 20 years of friendship, and you helped him screw my wife. Was lending them your beach house part of your promotion package? Marcus flinched. "It wasn't like that. Natalie said you two were already having problems." "We weren't." Daniel stood, dropping cash on the bar. "But we sure as hell have them now. Goodbye, Marcus. Good luck with the restructuring." His sister Catherine was next. They met at her favorite cafe, where she'd insisted on buying him coffee to talk things through. Catherine had always been the family mediator, the reasonable one. But today, her tone felt like sandpaper on raw skin. "You have to understand, Danny," she began, stirring her latte. Natalie was feeling trapped. Richard opened her eyes to a whole different world. Country clubs, charity galas, real society. "I just helped her navigate it a bit, showed her and the girls around." "While she was cheating on your brother," Daniel replied, his coffee sitting untouched. "How long have you been playing her guy, half?" Catherine had the grace to look uncomfortable. "The girls loved it. You should see them at the club, D. They've made such wonderful connections." "Connections," Daniel cut her off. "That's what we're calling it now. Tell me, does your husband know you helped destroy your brother's marriage for country club access?" "That's not fair," Catherine protested. "I was thinking of the girls' futures. Emily and Lucy deserve to learn that betrayal is acceptable if the price is right." Daniel stood, his chair scraping back. "You're their aunt, Catherine. You were supposed to protect them, not help corrupt them." The final blow came during what was supposed to be a family dinner with the twins. Daniel had made their favorites, Emily's chicken parmesan and Lucy's fettuccine alfredo, hoping food might bridge the growing chasm between them. Instead, Lucy spent the first 20 minutes texting under the table, occasionally showing Emily something that made them both giggle. When Daniel asked about school, Lucy finally looked up, her expression a perfect mirror of Natalie's earlier cruelty. "Actually, Dad, we need to talk." "Talk about what?" Daniel set down his fork. Lucy placed her phone down with deliberate care. "Uncle Richard." "The first time you've called him Uncle Richard in front of me," Daniel interrupted. "Go on." Lucy's voice sharpened. "He says we should probably switch to Lancaster Prep. All his friends' kids go there. And it's much more prestigious than Westfield." "Uncle Richard," Daniel repeated quietly. "Since when do you call him that?" "Since he started acting more like a father than you ever did," Lucy shot back. "He actually cares about our futures. He's taking us to Paris for spring break. Did you know that? While you're stuck here obsessing over your boring logistics job." "Lucy," Emily spoke for the first time, her voice uncertain. She had always been the more sensitive twin, more attuned to others' feelings. "No, Em, he needs to hear this," Lucy insisted, leaning forward. Her 16-year-old face was hard with practiced disdain. "We want to live with Mom and Richard. We shouldn't waste time with losers like you." "Richard says a lot of things." Daniel's voice could have cut diamond. "Tell me, Lucy, did your mother and Uncle Richard explain exactly how their relationship started? About the months of lying? Using Marcus's beach house for their meetings? Mom said you tried to turn us against them," Lucy said, standing up so abruptly her chair scraped loudly. "Come on, Emily. Richard's driver is waiting outside anyway. We're done here." Emily hesitated, looking between her sister and father. For a moment, something like regret flicked across her face. Then Lucy grabbed her arm, and the moment passed. "Sorry, Dad," Emily muttered, following her sister out. Daniel sat alone at the dinner table, staring at the untouched food. Somewhere in the house, a clock ticked away seconds that felt like funeral bells. The law offices of Chung and Associates occupied the entire 42nd floor of a downtown high-rise. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered panoramic views of the city, but Daniel wasn't here for the scenery. He sat across from Teresa Chung, Natalie's shark of a lawyer, while his own attorney shifted uncomfortably beside him. "Let's be realistic, Mr. Conway." Chung's smile never reached her eyes. "Your wife has endured years of emotional neglect while you focused on your career. Meanwhile, she dedicated herself to raising your daughters and maintaining your social standing. The courts will take that into consideration." "Emotional neglect," Daniel's lawyer, James Foster, sputtered. "Mrs. Conway engaged in a months-long affair." "Allegedly," Chung cut in smoothly, "and even if true, one could argue it was driven by Mr. Conway's persistent absence and inability to meet his wife's emotional needs. The children's testimony will support this." "You're putting my daughters on the stand." Daniel's voice was dangerously quiet. "Emily and Lucy are old enough to speak to the court about their experiences," Chung said, shuffling some papers. "They have very clear memories of missed ballet recitals, abbreviated family vacations, and endless work calls. Because I was supporting their private school tuition and their mother's designer wardrobe," Daniel replied evenly. "Tell me, Ms. Chung, will you also be presenting evidence of how that affair began? The text messages, Marcus Wheeler's beach house receipts." Chung's smile tightened fractionally. "Mr. Conway, let's be civilized. Your wife is prepared to be generous. You can keep your retirement accounts, and we won't seek alimony if you agree to surrender the house and primary custody." "Generous," Daniel leaned forward, his tone cutting. "She cheats on me, turns my children against me, and you call that generous?" "Daniel," Foster warned quietly. "The girls have already expressed their preference to live with their mother," Chung continued. "Given their age, the court will likely honor that. Fighting this will only drain your resources and traumatize your children further. Sign the agreement, Mr. Conway," Chung concluded, her tone cool. "Walk away with some dignity." The courtroom was worse. Natalie sat beside Richard, both perfectly groomed and coordinated in expensive suits. She had even coached the twins on their appearance. Emily and Lucy wore matching blue dresses that made them look younger, more vulnerable. Lucy's testimony came first, delivered with practiced precision. "Dad was never really there for us," she declared, her eyes wide with rehearsed sadness. "He missed my ballet recital for a business meeting. When Mom and Richard started spending time together, it was different. Richard really listens. He makes time for family." Emily followed, less polished but equally damaging. "Dad's always been distant," she said, not quite meeting his eyes. "More interested in his work than us. Richard helps us with college planning, introduces us to people who matter." The judge's ruling felt like a formality. Daniel lost the house he had spent 15 years paying for, primary custody of his daughters, and most of their joint savings after Natalie's lawyer successfully argued to maintain the children's standard of living. Only Glenn Wynn, from the Logistics Technology Department, showed any loyalty. He helped Daniel find a small apartment and quietly shared internal reports about Richard's management decisions. "He's gutting quality control," Glenn reported over beers in a dive bar far from their usual haunts. "Outsourcing everything he can, cutting corners on safety protocols. The board's eating it up because short-term profits are up, but it's going to implode eventually." "Eventually doesn't help me now," Daniel replied, staring into his glass. "No," Glenn agreed, "but knowledge is power, my friend. And I've got copies of every bad decision he's making. Just keep them somewhere safe. You never know when having friends in the right places might matter." Daniel nodded slowly, thinking of his automated logistics system plans still saved on his personal laptop. "You're right, Glenn. You never know." The empty apartment echoed with each keystroke as Daniel worked late into the night. 3 months after the divorce, he had transformed the spare bedroom into a makeshift office with whiteboards covering the walls and a dual-monitor setup on a simple IKEA desk. His laptop displayed complex flowcharts of the logistics management system he had conceptualized years ago, but never had time to develop. Another internal report from Glenn landed in his encrypted email, more evidence of Richard's systematic dismantling of TransGlobal's quality controls. Each document painted a picture of impending disaster. Safety protocols ignored, experienced staff replaced with cheaper alternatives, maintenance schedules stretched beyond industry standards. "Patient zero of corporate cancer," Daniel muttered, adding the new data to his growing archive. A notification popped up. Another Instagram post from Lucy, tagged at Richard's Hamptons estate. The photo showed his daughters in designer swimwear on a yacht, champagne glasses raised. The caption read, "Living our best life with Dad 2.0 #blessed #luxury life." Daniel's jaw tightened. 16-year-olds drinking champagne on a yacht with their mother's affair partner, it perfectly encapsulated everything wrong with Richard's world. He closed the tab without commenting. They'd learn about consequences soon enough. His phone buzzed with a text from Catherine. "Danny, please. The girls miss you. Richard's taking them to Monaco next week." Delete. Block. His sister had chosen her side, trading family loyalty for country club access. The apartment's ancient coffee maker chose that moment to die with a final protesting gurgle. Daniel grabbed his laptop bag and jacket, heading for the 24-hour coffee shop 3 blocks away. The night air felt clean, washing away hours of screen glare and code. The collision happened just outside the coffee shop door. Lost in thoughts about system architecture, Daniel didn't notice the woman juggling her laptop bag and coffee until it was too late. Her coffee splashed across his laptop bag, and her research papers scattered across the sidewalk. "I'm so sorry," she said, dropping to her knees to gather the papers. "I was reviewing research notes while walking." Terrible habit. As Daniel helped collect the papers, he noticed complex behavioral flowcharts and psychological analyses of corporate structures. One diagram particularly caught his eye. It perfectly mapped the dysfunction he had witnessed at TransGlobal. "These are fascinating," he said, studying a chart. "Corporate hierarchy impact studies. This pattern here, it's exactly what I saw happen when our new CEO took over." Yes, she looked up, revealing intelligent eyes behind simple frames. I'm Dr. Olivia Blake, an industrial psychologist at State University. I'm researching how corporate structures influence human behavior and efficiency. She tilted her head, studying him. You understand these models. Daniel Conway, former regional operations manager at Transglobal Logistics. He handed her the papers. Your research on hierarchical resistance to innovation. It matches patterns I've seen throughout my career. Most systems fail because they ignore human factors. Inside the coffee shop, under fluorescent lights that made midnight feel like noon, Daniel found himself explaining his vision for logistics. Olivia asked sharp, insightful questions that forced him to refine concepts he thought were finished. The fundamental flaw in most logistics software, she said, sketching rapidly on a napkin, is assuming human beings operate like machines. They don't. People resist change, not because they're stubborn, but because most systems ignore basic psychological needs for autonomy and competence. Exactly. Daniel pulled out his laptop, showing her his preliminary designs. Traditional logistics software treats workers like cogs. I want to build something that adapts to how people actually work. This is brilliant, Olivia said, studying his flowcharts. But you'll need someone who understands both the psychology and the technical requirements. She paused, considering. Actually, I know someone perfect for this. Melissa Newman. She's a brilliant software engineer who left Silicon Valley because she was tired of creating apps that ignored human factors. She's been consulting on my research. 2 days later, they met Melissa at a small cafe near the university. At 40, she carried herself with the confident focus of someone who knew exactly how good she was at her job. She reviewed Daniel's code with brutal efficiency. Silicon Valley's dead, she declared, making rapid notes. They're all chasing the next social media unicorn while ignoring real business needs. She tapped his laptop screen. This could revolutionize logistics, but you'll need help with the architecture. I can pay, Daniel began. Not interested in salary, Melissa cut him off. I want equity, 20%, plus control over technical architecture. Dr. Blake consults on user psychology. You handle the business side. And I'll build you a system that makes Transglobal look like they're using stone tablets and chisels. Deal, Daniel said. When can you start? Melissa was already typing. Your basic architecture is solid, but the data flow needs optimization. Give me a week. I'll have a prototype that'll make your ex-wife's new CEO boyfriend look like the overpaid hack he is. Over the next 2 years, Daniel's apartment transformed into Logitech's unofficial headquarters. The spare bedroom became a proper office, with Melissa's workstation beside his. Olivia's research papers and psychology models covered one wall, while code diagrams filled another. Their routine fell into a comfortable rhythm. Mornings began with coffee and market analysis, afternoons were for coding and testing, and evenings stretched late into the night as they refined their system, fueled by takeout and sheer determination. The traditional logistics model is hierarchical, Olivia explained one evening, sketching on the whiteboard they'd installed. But human beings naturally form networks. Your system needs to reflect that. Melissa typed furiously at her station. We can build adaptive pathways. The software learns each user's patterns and adjusts accordingly. Their dinner discussions evolved into weekend strategy sessions. Olivia brought an understanding of human behavior that transformed their technical solutions into user-friendly tools. Unlike Natalie's superficial interests, Olivia challenged Daniel intellectually. Her insights forced him to rethink assumptions about business and technology. Glenn continued feeding them information about Transglobal's declining service quality. His latest report detailed a major security breach in their outsourced IT system, exactly the kind of vulnerability Logitech was designed to prevent. Their first break came through Glenn's connection to Regional Retail Solutions, RRS, a mid-sized chain frustrated with Transglobal's performance. Sarah Chun, RRS operations director, agreed to meet them after another failed delivery nearly cost them a major contract. Their delivery times are worse than ever, Sarah complained during their presentation. Richard Whittaker keeps talking about modernization, but nothing improves. Last week, they lost an entire shipment of perishable goods because their tracking system failed. Daniel laid out Logitech's prototype. It will reduce your logistics costs by 40% in 3 months, or the trial period is free. Our system adapts to your existing workflows instead of forcing your people to change how they work. 40%. Sarah looked skeptical. Transglobal promised 20 and delivered nothing. Transglobal is running on outdated systems and cutting corners, Daniel replied. We built Logitech from scratch, specifically for companies like yours. Give us 3 months. If we fail, you lose nothing. 2 months later, RRS's logistics costs had dropped by 35%. By month 3, they'd exceeded the promised 40% reduction. More importantly, their employee satisfaction scores had improved dramatically. This is revolutionary, Sarah told him, signing the full contract. How did you achieve this? Daniel thought of endless nights of coding, Melissa's technical brilliance, and Olivia's psychological insights. By understanding that technology should serve people, not the other way around. Success brought other clients. Each implementation proved smoother than the last as they refined their system. Daniel hired carefully, building a team that shared their vision of excellence without compromise. Olivia's role evolved beyond consulting. She joined their coffee runs and late-night strategy sessions, her presence bringing warmth to discussions that might otherwise have drowned in technical details. Unlike Natalie, who had always demanded attention, Olivia offered quiet support and brilliant insights in equal measure. One evening, after a particularly successful client meeting, Melissa cornered Daniel in the office kitchen. You know she's not going to wait forever, right? Melissa said, leaning against the counter. Who? Daniel focused on pouring his coffee. Don't play dumb, Olivia. I see how you look at her when you think no one's watching. Melissa rolled her eyes. Look, I get it. Your ex-wife did a number on you. But Olivia is different. She sees you for who you are, not what you can give her. We're colleagues, Daniel replied automatically. Right, Melissa smirked. Because all colleagues spend every weekend together reviewing data. Just don't wait too long. Good things shouldn't be taken for granted. 5 years after the divorce, Logitech Solutions had become the industry's rising star. Their client list included major retailers and manufacturers, many poached directly from Transglobal's declining empire. Daniel sat in their new downtown office, reviewing the latest acquisition report. Marcus Wheeler's largest client had just signed with Logitech, citing Transglobal's deteriorating service quality. The irony wasn't lost on him. The same beach house that had hosted his wife's affair was now probably hosting Marcus's panic attacks about losing clients. His phone buzzed with a message from Catherine. Danny, please call me. I didn't understand what Natalie was really like. The girls miss you. Family should stick together. Daniel drafted a short reply. Understanding seems to come easier with success. Please don't contact me again. A knock at his door interrupted his thoughts. Olivia entered, carrying fresh coffee and a stack of research papers. Our latest user interface study results are in, she said, setting the papers down. The adaptive learning algorithms are showing a 98% satisfaction rate, better than expected. Daniel accepted the coffee, their fingers brushing briefly. Your research on corporate psychology transformed our system. The system was already brilliant, Olivia replied, settling into her usual chair. I just helped make it more human. She paused, studying him. I saw Catherine's message on your phone. Old habits die hard, Daniel said. Success makes people reconsider their choices. Does it make you reconsider yours? Olivia asked softly. Daniel met her gaze. Every choice I've made since the divorce has led me here. I wouldn't change any of them. They worked late again, reviewing implementation strategies for their newest clients. The office gradually emptied, leaving them alone with the city lights spread out below. "Move in with me," Daniel said quietly, watching Olivia analyze data flows. "You practically live at my apartment anyway, between late nights and weekend sessions. Make it official." Olivia looked up, her expression serious. "Are you sure? We've never really talked about." "I'm sure," Daniel said, his tone steady. "You've never tried to change me or demanded I become something I'm not. You challenge me to be better while accepting who I am. That's worth more than all the yachts and country club memberships in the world." A slow smile spread across Olivia's face. "In that case, yes. But we're getting a bigger apartment. Your current one is 90% whiteboards." 93%, Daniel corrected, drawing her close. Melissa measured them with a smug grin the next day when they told her. "About damn time," she remarked, adjusting her tablet as she reviewed client contracts. "Now, can we finally focus on beating the pants off Transglobal without all this unresolved tension clogging up the workspace?" Daniel smirked but said nothing, his focus already shifting to the next big step for Logitech. The company was gaining momentum, and with each passing month, Transglobal's empire was crumbling further. Marcus Wheeler's frantic attempts to salvage his division were reported back to Daniel through industry whispers. The irony was rich. Marcus, the man who had helped orchestrate Daniel's personal downfall, now drowning in the mess Richard Whittaker had created. Glenn Wynn, Daniel's loyal ally from the early days, had been promoted to regional director of Logitech's East Coast operations. He took particular satisfaction in poaching Transglobal's former clients, one contract at a time. "Johnson Manufacturing is on board," Glenn announced one afternoon during a strategy meeting. "Full contract, no negotiations. Marcus must be thrilled." Daniel leaned back in his chair, the faintest of smiles on his face. "Any other good news?" Melissa walked in, tablet in hand, her usual energy amplified by triumph. "Better than good," she declared, pulling up a series of graphs. 5 more major clients are reviewing their contracts with Transglobal. Richard's cost-cutting finally hit their breaking point. 3 shipments lost last week, 2 major safety violations, and their automated system, if you can call it that, has a 90% error rate. Olivia entered a moment later, a thick research report in hand. After 6 years together, their professional balance was seamless. At work, she was Dr. Blake, Logitech's chief research officer. At home, she was simply Olivia, his partner in every sense. "My team finished analyzing Transglobal's employee turnover data," she announced, setting the report on his desk. 80% of their experienced staff have left in the past 3 years. Richard replaced them with temp workers at a third of the salary. "And how's that working out for them?" Daniel asked, his tone laced with dry amusement. "Their efficiency ratings are lower than when they used paper ledgers," Olivia replied, setting down her coffee. "But that's not even the best part. Check their social media presence." Daniel opened his laptop, pulling up familiar feeds. Natalie's Instagram, once a parade of luxury vacations and designer shopping sprees, had transformed dramatically. Gone were the yacht parties and private jet selfies. Her recent posts featured vague, inspirational quotes overlaid on sunset backgrounds. "True wealth lies within, and sometimes life's greatest storms bring us where we need to be." "How philosophical," Olivia observed, leaning over his shoulder. "Amazing how inner peace becomes attractive when the credit cards stop working." A notification popped up. Lucy's latest attempt at influencer fame. His older daughter had posted a desperate pitch for a questionable diet tea. The post had garnered exactly 12 likes, down from the thousands she once commanded when Richard's money funded her lifestyle. Emily's LinkedIn profile showed a different but equally sobering story. She had at least finished college, but her dreams of walking into a C-suite position through Richard's connections had evaporated. Her work history now displayed a string of increasingly modest positions, each shorter than the last. Their trust fund was mostly Transglobal stock, Melissa noted, scanning financial reports. Currently worth less than recycled cardboard. Richard's been quietly selling his personal shares for months. The rats always know when to flee the ship. Daniel's phone buzzed with another message from Catherine. Danny, please. The girls need you. Everything Richard promised. It was all lies. Their trust fund, their futures. You're their father. He deleted the message without replying. On his desk, another report demanded his attention. Logan Financial Group, one of TransGlobal's largest shareholders, was interested in discussing Logitech services. Set up the meeting, Daniel instructed Melissa, and have legal prepare acquisition documents. When TransGlobal declares bankruptcy, I want first position on their assets. Already done, Melissa replied. Her efficiency was legendary. Glenn sent over their complete internal audit. It's worse than we imagined. Richard's been falsifying reports to shareholders for years. Send everything to the SEC, Daniel decided. Anonymously, through our usual channels. Let's ensure this implosion is thorough. Rain lashed against Logitech's windows on a gray Tuesday morning. Daniel reviewed quarterly projections while Olivia analyzed user interface data from their latest software update. Their comfortable routine was interrupted by his assistant's urgent call. Mr. Conway, Natalie Warren is here, with your daughters. Daniel met Olivia's eyes. They had discussed this possibility, knowing Richard's downfall would eventually lead to this moment. Send them up, he said, his voice betraying nothing. They arrived looking like faded photographs of their former selves. Natalie's designer outfit, likely from the height of her affair days, showed subtle signs of wear. The twins, now 24, had lost their social media glossiness. Lucy's expensive makeup couldn't hide her stress, while Emily's business casual attire seemed chosen to project competence she hadn't earned. Daniel, Natalie began, attempting her old sophistication, but it fell flat. You're looking successful. 8 years does that, he replied evenly, remaining seated behind his desk. Olivia stood beside him, a quiet but steady presence. Why are you here? Daddy. Lucy stepped forward, tears already forming. Her practiced performance hadn't improved with age. We've changed. We miss you. Richard. Emily hesitated, genuine discomfort in her voice. He lied about everything. The fund, his promises about our futures. He left us with nothing but debts. Natalie cut in. The house is being foreclosed. His creditors are calling constantly. We need help. Daniel's voice was like ice. Like the help you gave during the divorce, or the help you offered when you testified about my emotional unavailability. We were stupid kids, Emily said softly. We thought money meant everything. And now that the money's gone, Olivia observed quietly, you've discovered family values. Her words made them flinch. Lucy tried again, her voice trembling. Uncle Richard. Don't, Daniel cut her off sharply. Richard didn't make you do anything. You chose luxury over loyalty. You decided your father's love was worth less than a yacht and a spring break in Paris. We've changed, Lucy insisted, tears flowing freely now. Please, Daddy. We need you. Need me. Daniel stood slowly, his full height making the distance between them feel insurmountable. 8 years ago, you taught me an invaluable lesson about character and worth. Today, I'm teaching one about consequences and respect. He pressed the intercom. Security, please escort these visitors out. Daniel, please. Natalie's desperation cracked her polished facade. Where are we supposed to go? That's not my concern. Daniel turned back to the window. I suggest starting with minimum wage jobs. I hear character building begins at the bottom. After security led them out, Daniel remained at the window, watching the rain. Olivia's hand found his, her understanding conveyed through silence. You know what's ironic? He said finally. I used to worry about providing them the best of everything. Private school, extracurriculars, summer camps. Now, they'll learn what I knew at their age. Success comes from work, not handouts. They'll be better for it. They will, Olivia agreed, though I doubt they see that yet. Daniel turned from the window, taking in the office he had built from nothing. His CEO plaque sat beside Olivia's framed research papers and their shared patents, real achievements built on mutual respect and hard work. "I have a meeting with the board at 2, he said, checking his schedule. "We should discuss the Logitech Foundation." Olivia smiled, understanding his direction. Scholarships for students from single-parent homes, focusing on technology degrees. Exactly. Daniel pulled up a draft proposal. "Let's create opportunities for people who understand the value of work." The next month passed in a blur of triumph and justice. TransGlobal declared bankruptcy, their stock rendered worthless. Logitech acquired their assets at a fraction of their value, salvaging what could be integrated into their own operations and discarding the rest. Glenn Wynn, Daniel's one loyal friend from the old days, became Logitech's global operations director, transforming the acquired facilities into models of efficiency. Reports filtered in about the aftermath. Emily found work as a retail associate, folding sweaters between shifts, learning humility the hard way. Lucy's influencer dreams crumbled entirely, forcing her to take a job as a waitress. Her attempts to project her former lifestyle fell flat, her once polished facade cracking under the weight of reality. Natalie, stripped of her social status, landed a receptionist position at a small law firm, the same firm that had handled her divorce from Richard. The irony was almost poetic. As for Richard Whittaker, the golden boy with a Harvard MBA who had taken everything from Daniel, his descent was swift and public. The SEC investigation into TransGlobal's collapse revealed years of fraudulent reporting and misappropriation of funds. Richard served 3 years in a minimum security prison, emerging penniless with no connections to save him. His once commanding presence reduced to a cautionary tale, he now taught basic business classes at a community college, his name synonymous with failure. Meanwhile, Daniel and Olivia planned their wedding, a small, intimate affair focused on genuine connections rather than ostentation. Held in a botanical garden, it was attended only by close friends, including Melissa, who served as their witness and couldn't resist sarcastic comments about finally making the nerd partnership official. The reception featured conversations about technology and psychology rather than the shallow networking Natalie had once demanded. It was everything Daniel could have hoped for and more. The Logitech Foundation's first graduation ceremony held particular pride of place in Daniel's heart. 20 students from single-parent homes received technology degrees, their faces bright with earned achievement. That program had grown rapidly, now supporting over 200 students annually, creating a new generation of innovators who valued hard work and character over shortcuts and privilege. Glenn took particular satisfaction in implementing Logitech systems into the facilities once owned by TransGlobal. "They called your plans too idealistic," Glenn said over drinks one evening. "Now, they're the gold standard in the industry." Marcus Wheeler would choke if he saw the efficiency ratings were pulling out of his old divisions. Marcus always did underestimate what people could accomplish when they're treated with respect. Daniel replied, swirling his glass. "I doubt he's choking on much now." Marcus's career had indeed never recovered. After the collapse of TransGlobal, he was unable to secure an executive position anywhere. His attempts to re-enter the logistics world were met with polite but firm rejections. The beach house where Natalie's affair had begun was sold to cover his debts. He now worked as a mid-level manager at a regional shipping company, his ambitions as dead as his friendship with Daniel. Melissa continued to be a cornerstone of Logitech's success, her technical brilliance and uncompromising honesty driving innovation. She turned down countless offers from Silicon Valley, famously stating, "Building something real beats creating another app for sharing cat photos." Her collaboration with Olivia on user-friendly interfaces set new standards in enterprise software, making Logitech the name every logistics manager trusted. Olivia's research on corporate psychology earned her international recognition. The Blake model of adaptive organizational systems became a cornerstone of modern business education, taught at leading universities worldwide, including, deliciously, Harvard Business School. Olivia split her time between Logitech and guest lecturing, shaping the next generation of business leaders who understood that true success came from building people up, not tearing them down. Daniel and Olivia's relationship only deepened with time. Their partnership proved that professional success and personal happiness could coexist when built on mutual respect and shared values. They traveled extensively, not for show, but to meet with foundation scholars and explore new ideas for expanding their impact. Each trip reaffirmed their belief in creating opportunities for those willing to work for them. One morning, as Daniel reviewed applications for the next round of scholarships, a familiar name caught his attention. Angela, Lucy's daughter. The application was brutally honest about their circumstances. Angela was being raised by a single mother working as a waitress, but her essay demonstrated a genuine understanding of hard work and a passion for technology. After careful consideration, Daniel approved the scholarship, not out of sentimentality or forgiveness, but because the Foundation's mission was to help those who understood the value of effort. Angela would never know her grandfather had ensured she would have the chance to earn, not be given, a better future. The final irony came when Harvard Business School invited Daniel to give a guest lecture on ethical business leadership. Standing at the podium where Richard Whittaker had once learned his shallow lessons on success, Daniel spoke about the true meaning of greatness. Success isn't about what you take, Daniel told the room of bright young minds. It's about what you build. It's about character, commitment, and the courage to create something meaningful, even from life's hardest moments. The wheel of karma had turned fully, teaching lessons about character and consequences that no amount of money could buy. In the quiet moments between triumphs, Daniel and Olivia often reflected on how destruction had led to creation, and how the best revenge had never been about watching others fall. It had been about building something better, something lasting. Logitech, the Foundation, their marriage, all stood as testaments to the truth that real success is earned, not inherited. A decade after that rainy day in his office, Daniel Conway stood in Logitech's newly expanded headquarters, now occupying the entire building where TransGlobal's offices had once dominated the skyline. Photographs of his journey adorned the walls. His wedding to Olivia, Melissa's first prototype, the Foundation's first graduating class. Each image told a story of triumph not over others, but over the circumstances that had once threatened to define him. As he looked out over the city, Daniel reflected on the path that had brought him here. The greatest victory wasn't the collapse of those who had betrayed him. It was the rise of something far greater. From the ashes of their betrayal, he had built a legacy of integrity, opportunity, and purpose. The best revenge, as it turned out, wasn't revenge at all. It was living well, for all the right reasons. The years that followed saw Logitech's influence grow beyond even Daniel's initial vision. The company expanded globally, not just dominating the logistics industry, but setting new benchmarks in supply chain management, employee satisfaction, and client success. Under Olivia's guidance, their research division became a powerhouse, constantly improving the software's adaptability and human-centered design. Melissa's technical leadership transformed their systems into the most reliable and innovative in the industry. Logitech's headquarters, now a towering symbol of modern success, housed not just its operational staff, but a dedicated innovation lab, scholarships office, and community outreach programs. Daniel and Olivia remained at the heart of it all, their leadership grounded in the values of fairness, hard work, and respect. Each year, the Logitech Foundation Scholarship Program grew, funding students from underserved backgrounds who showed both aptitude and perseverance. Angela, Lucy's daughter, became one of its brightest stars. She graduated with honors, earning a degree in software engineering and joining Logitech's development team. Daniel never revealed the familial connection, treating her as he would any promising young professional. Her contributions spoke for themselves, proving that opportunity paired with effort could lead to greatness. Meanwhile, Daniel's former family continued their struggle with the realities of their choices. Emily, now in her 30s, found stability as a teacher for underprivileged children, using her experiences to inspire students to value character over materialism. Lucy, however, remained adrift, cycling through failed business ventures and short-lived attempts at reinvention. Her Karen moment, a viral video of her berating a service worker, had permanently damaged her public image, leaving her with few prospects beyond low-wage jobs. Natalie, aged beyond her years, worked as a clerk in a small office, her once immaculate style replaced by practical attire. She avoided social gatherings, unable to face the circles where she had once reigned as queen. Richard Whittaker's downfall became a case study in every business ethics class. His name, once synonymous with prestige, now stood as a warning of the dangers of greed and arrogance. Unable to find meaningful work, he eked out a meager living giving guest lectures at community colleges, his audience dwindling with every passing year. The turning point came when Daniel, Olivia, and Melissa were invited to deliver the keynote address at an international tech and innovation summit. The event, held in London, marked a moment of global recognition for Logitech's achievements. As Daniel stood before an audience of thousands, he reflected on the journey that had brought him there. "True innovation doesn't just solve problems," he said, his voice steady and confident. "It empowers people. At Logitech, we believe in creating systems that work with human nature, not against it. Technology should adapt to people, not force people to adapt to technology." And in life, as in business, the most enduring success comes from building something meaningful together. The applause was thunderous, and as he stepped off the stage, Olivia took his hand. "You've come a long way," she said with a smile. "So have we," Daniel replied, looking at her and Melissa. "None of this would have been possible without the two of you." Back in their suite that evening, Daniel received an unexpected email. It was from Emily. She wrote cautiously, asking if they could reconnect. She didn't ask for money or favors, just a chance to rebuild a relationship. After much thought, Daniel replied simply, "Let's start small. Lunch next week." The next week, they met at a modest cafe. Emily arrived nervous but sincere, apologizing for her role in the past and sharing stories of her work with children. For the first time in years, Daniel saw glimpses of the daughter he had once known. Their conversation was honest and heartfelt, and by the end, Daniel felt something he hadn't expected: hope. Years later, as he sat at the Logitech Foundation's annual gala, a genuine celebration of progress and opportunity, Daniel watched Angela accept an award for her groundbreaking contributions to adaptive software design. Beside him, Olivia squeezed his hand, her pride mirroring his own. In the end, the greatest victories of Daniel's life were not measured in wealth or power, but in the lives he had touched and the legacy he had built. Logitech stood as a testament to perseverance and integrity, proving that from even the deepest betrayal, it was possible to create something lasting, something good. And in those quiet moments, when the noise of the world faded, Daniel knew he had not just rebuilt his life, he had redefined it. From ashes to legacy, his story was one of transformation, not for revenge, but for purpose. As the years passed, Logitech's impact continued to ripple across industries and communities. The company wasn't just a leader in logistics, it became a symbol of how ethical leadership and innovation could coexist. Under Daniel's guidance, Logitech expanded into new sectors, including green technology and sustainable supply chain solutions. The Foundation's programs extended globally, offering scholarships, mentorships, and internships to students in underprivileged regions, ensuring their values reached far beyond their immediate sphere of influence. Angela, now a senior engineer at Logitech, became a rising star. Her work on integrating machine learning into logistics systems made headlines in tech publications. At a company-wide celebration, Angela introduced Daniel to her mother, Lucy, who had reluctantly agreed to attend. Time and hardship had worn Lucy down, but there was a flicker of humility in her demeanor as she greeted her father. "Thank you for helping Angela," Lucy said quietly, her voice devoid of the arrogance it once carried. "She tells me you never hesitated to approve her scholarship." "I didn't," Daniel replied simply. "She earned it." Lucy nodded, her gaze dropping to the floor. For once, she seemed to have nothing to add, no excuse to offer. As the evening wore on, Daniel found himself wondering if perhaps Lucy, like Emily, could find her way back to a more meaningful path. But he didn't dwell on it. His focus remained on those who had chosen to build something better, like Angela and Emily, and the thousands of others whose lives Logitech had transformed. The following year brought new milestones. Logitech unveiled its first fully carbon-neutral supply chain system, a groundbreaking initiative that combined Olivia's psychological research, Melissa's engineering expertise, and Daniel's strategic leadership. The launch attracted global attention, earning the company accolades and setting an industry standard for sustainability. At the same time, the foundation launched its most ambitious program yet, a global mentorship network connecting scholarship recipients with leaders in technology, business, and academia. The program was Olivia's brainchild, designed to ensure that the opportunities Logitech provided extended beyond financial aid, fostering lasting relationships and career growth. The mentorship program's inaugural event, held in Tokyo, featured scholars from over 30 countries. As Daniel watched the participants network and share their stories, he felt a deep sense of fulfillment. The vision he and Olivia had nurtured together was no longer just theirs, it belonged to the world. Back in the United States, remnants of his former life occasionally resurfaced. Natalie sent occasional letters, each one more apologetic than the last. Daniel never responded, but he kept them in a drawer, unopened, not out of bitterness, but because his energy was better spent elsewhere. He had moved on, and his focus was on the future, not the past. Emily became a frequent presence in his life, often joining him and Olivia for family dinners or foundation events. Her teaching career flourished, and she eventually became a program director for educational outreach at the foundation, creating pathways for underprivileged students to access higher education. The twins' paths, once so entangled with Natalie's ambition and Richard's lies, had diverged sharply. One day, while reviewing a quarterly report in his office, Daniel received a call from Glenn. "You're going to want to see this," Glenn said, his voice tinged with satisfaction. Richard Whittaker just declared personal bankruptcy. Daniel leaned back in his chair, processing the news. The man who had once boasted about his yachts and private jets was now penniless, his name a permanent fixture in cautionary tales about corporate greed and arrogance. "Guess the wheel finally turned all the way," Daniel said with a faint smile. "It always does," Glenn replied. "But we've got bigger things to worry about." The European division hit a 15% efficiency gain this quarter. "Looks like we're going to need to expand the infrastructure again." "Let's make it happen," Daniel said. "Thanks, Glenn." As he ended the call, Daniel glanced at the plaque on his desk, a gift from Olivia. "The best revenge is building something better." It was a constant reminder of the journey they had taken together and the legacy they were creating. 10 years after Angela's first scholarship, she stood on stage at a major tech conference, delivering a keynote speech about her latest innovation in logistics AI. Daniel and Olivia watched from the audience, their pride evident. Melissa, sitting beside them, leaned over and whispered, "Well, looks like the next generation is taking over." "That's the idea," Daniel replied with a grin. After the event, Angela approached Daniel, holding the award she had just received. "I couldn't have done this without you," she said, her voice steady with gratitude. "You did this because you worked for it," Daniel replied. "The opportunities were there, but you earned every bit of it." Angela nodded, her determination shining through. "I want to keep paying it forward. I want to help expand the mentorship program and bring it to more countries." "You've got our full support," Olivia said warmly. "Let's build it together." That evening, as they walked through the city, Daniel reflected on how far they had come. From the ashes of betrayal, he had built not just a company, but a legacy of integrity, opportunity, and innovation. Logitech was no longer just a business. It was a movement, a testament to what could be achieved when values and vision aligned. Standing on a bridge overlooking the city lights, Olivia took his hand. "Do you ever think about how different things could have been?" "Sometimes," Daniel admitted, "but not with regret. Every choice, every setback, led us here. And here is exactly where I want to be." As they stood together, the future felt bright, not just for them, but for the countless lives they had touched. And for Daniel, that was the greatest victory of all. Years passed, and Logitech's influence only deepened, becoming a cornerstone of ethical innovation in global industries. Under Daniel's leadership, the company's ethos remained steadfast. Technology and humanity should work in harmony, not opposition. As Logitech expanded into new territories, healthcare logistics, disaster relief systems, and even renewable energy supply chains, it became clear that their mission extended far beyond profits. The foundation, too, grew exponentially. Its reach spanned continents, funding education, community infrastructure, and even small business initiatives in underserved regions. Scholarship recipients became leaders in their fields, many returning to mentor the next generation. Angela, now head of adaptive systems engineering at Logitech, spearheaded a groundbreaking collaboration with NGOs to use their technology in developing nations. Her program optimized supply chains for food distribution and medical aid, saving countless lives. Angela's mother, Lucy, had begun to rebuild her own life. After years of instability, she found a small but meaningful role in community outreach, inspired by the transformation she saw in her daughter. Though her relationship with Daniel remained distant, Lucy had finally started to understand the values he had built his life around. It was slow progress, but it was progress nonetheless. Emily, now happily married and raising a family of her own, had found her calling in education. Her work with the foundation brought her to schools and communities across the country, advocating for programs that bridged the gap between opportunity and access. Each success story felt personal to her, a chance to create the opportunity she once took for granted. For Daniel and Olivia, life was full, not just with their work, but with the quieter joys of partnership. They traveled often, not just for business, but to explore the world together. Their shared curiosity and mutual respect formed the bedrock of a life that felt richer than either could have imagined. One crisp autumn morning, Daniel sat on a panel at a global summit on sustainable innovation. Beside him were leaders from industries as varied as green energy and biotechnology. The discussion turned to legacy, and the moderator asked a question that lingered in the air like a challenge. "Mr. Conway," she began, "if you could distill everything you've achieved into one lesson for the next generation of leaders, what would it be?" Daniel paused, thoughtful. The room was silent, waiting. "Leadership," he said finally, "isn't about what you can take or control. It's about what you can build together. Success comes from investing in people, creating opportunities, and ensuring that the systems we design serve humanity, not just profit. If there's one thing I've learned, it's this. The real measure of success isn't what you leave behind for others to envy, but what you leave behind for others to grow." The room erupted in applause, but Daniel's mind was already moving forward. There were more ideas to explore, more systems to improve, more lives to impact. That evening, back in their shared home, a modern but understated house filled with books, art, and framed photos of their journey, Daniel and Olivia reflected on the day. The fireplace crackled softly as they sat on the couch, a glass of wine in each of their hands. "You know," Olivia said, "you've changed more lives than I think you realize." "I just created opportunities," Daniel replied. "The people who took those opportunities, they did the hard work." "You're too humble," she said, smiling. "But that's one of the reasons I love you." Daniel leaned back, looking at the photo wall across the room. Among the images of conferences, client milestones, and foundation scholars, there was one photo that stood out. their small wedding in the botanical garden, with Melissa smirking in the background as their witness. It was a reminder of where they had started, how far they had come, and how much they had built, not out of spite or revenge, but from a desire to create something meaningful. "Do you ever wonder what Richard thinks of all this?" Olivia asked playfully. Daniel chuckled, shaking his head. "I don't actually. He doesn't matter anymore. He was a lesson, not a legacy." Olivia raised her glass. "To lessons, then, and to legacies." "To legacies," Daniel agreed, clinking his glass against hers. As Logitech approached its 20th anniversary, Daniel stepped back from daily operations, transitioning into a mentorship and advisory role within the company. Melissa became CEO, her relentless focus and uncompromising drive ensuring that the company's values remained intact. Olivia continued her research, splitting her time between Logitech and academia, where her work inspired the next generation of ethical leaders. In retirement, Daniel found new ways to contribute, dedicating more time to the foundation and its programs. He and Olivia traveled to remote villages, meeting scholarship recipients and seeing firsthand the impact of their work. Each handshake, each story of triumph over adversity, reaffirmed their belief in the power of opportunity and resilience. On the day of his retirement ceremony, Daniel stood in Logitech's sprawling atrium, surrounded by employees, clients, and scholarship recipients whose lives had been transformed by the company's vision. Melissa gave a heartfelt speech, recounting their early days in his tiny apartment, scribbling ideas on whiteboards and eating takeout. Olivia spoke next, her voice steady with pride as she described the legacy they had built together. When it was Daniel's turn to speak, he kept it brief. "I started this journey thinking success was about proving people wrong," he said. "But I learned that real success is about proving what's possible. And everything we've achieved here, everything you've achieved, is proof that when we work together, we can build something far greater than ourselves." The applause was deafening, but Daniel's focus was on the faces in the crowd, people who had shared his vision, who had worked tirelessly to make it a reality, and who would carry it forward long after he was gone. As he stepped away from the podium, Olivia took his hand. "Ready for the next chapter?" she asked. "Always," Daniel said, a quiet smile on his face. And so, surrounded by the people and the legacy they had built, Daniel Conway closed one chapter of his life, knowing that the next would be just as meaningful. The best revenge, after all, was never revenge. It was building a life worth living. Thanks to everyone who took the time to listen to today's stories. If you enjoyed it, please consider liking and subscribing if you haven't already. Feel free to share your thoughts on the events in the comments below. Take care.